Welcome to Kathryn Raaker's World. Innovation, culture, adventure, fashion and health, artists, destinations, traditions. This is Kathryn Raaker's World.
Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Kathryn Raaker's World, syndicated TV, and Let's Just Talk, syndicated radio. I'm so honored to have our guest today, who's been on my program before, is Steve Stern, CEO of Lord Daniels Sportswear, which is the 68th year. And Steve is the founder of FlagShirt.com, a division of Lord Daniels Sportswear, the largest patriotic site in the United States. Mr. Stern is a radio and TV personality and appears daily on many stations as a guest and promotes PrecinctStrategy.com. He's also the co-host of the Zoom show, Save My Freedom, a bi-weekly show about precinct strategy with people joining in from all over the country. Steve is also president of his Homeowners Association and former secretary of the Florida Tennis Association. And for more information to buy your shirts and everything else apparel-wise, go to https the FlagShirt.com. Welcome to our show today. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm happy to be here. And just to let you know, today is kind of a day that we're celebrating because we are making it a national call to action. We want people to sign up 1 million new Republican voters, and we want everybody to sign up a new committee man and a committee woman. So we have 400,000 slots in a Republican Party, which is www.precinctstrategy.com. It was started by Dan Schultz, and he wrote a book on why people should join the Republican Party. Here is the copy.
Oh, wow.
Here's a copy of the book. And if everybody goes to www.precinctstrategy.com, they can learn how to become a committee man and committee woman. There's presently about 210,000 people involved. And I try to go on weekly shows and ask people to get involved. And usually when we go on these shows, we get anywhere from 10 to 700 phone calls. And I answer every call, and later on I'll put my number up and my email up, and you're welcome to call. So what does a committee man and committee woman do? Well,
what do they do?
Every county in the United States has either a executive county committee or a county committee. Each state is different. And I'll tell you a little about Florida, where I live. And I'll tell you what we do. So Florida, I'm in the Broward Republican Executive Committee, and I've been there for 20 years. So when I first started, I called up, and by and large, nobody called me back for 3 months. I said, no. They said, I want to volunteer my time, and nobody calls me back. So then they finally called me back and said, oh, yeah, you have to fill in an application. I said, what do I do with the application? He said, mail it in. Well, I hadn't heard anything back after I mailed it in for another 3 months. So finally I called up, oh, yeah, we have your application. You have to now come to a couple of meetings, and you got to get vetted, and you got to do this and do that. So I came to a couple of meetings, finally got in, and I'm sitting there listening to everybody. And not a person came up and said hello or welcomed me to the thing. And I said, well, this is kind of funny. I said, I belong to the Republican Party, and I'm part of an executive committee, and nobody even cares. So I went to the chairman, and I said to her, listen, I'd like to become the head of the committee that gets people involved. Because when I get them involved, I want to congratulate them for coming in. I want to shake their hand. I want to introduce them to people. So she said, sure, we don't have anybody like that. I said, okay. And I said, by the way, I'd like to also take over the phone system. Oh, yeah, we have a guy who does it, and he answers the phones once in a while and returns the calls. So I picked up the phones, and there was 168 messages on the phone call. I picked it up, and I called every one of them, apologized that nobody called up. And I got the number, and I called everybody, and there was a lot of interesting things on there. A lot of people wanted to join, and nobody ever called them back. So what I did was I got the phone number. They gave me the number, the code, and I would call in every day, and I would get the calls. And people would say, "Hey, that's great. You know, I called a bunch of times, nobody called me back." So, well, I care. I said, "Listen," and I said to myself, "Wait a minute, something's wrong here. Is this all around the country the same way?" So as I got more and more involved, I found out, yes, it was the same all over the country, but I really didn't know what I could do about it. So about 3.5 years ago, I was watching TV and I was watching Steve Bannon. A guy came on, Dan Schultz, and he was telling everybody about precinct strategy, about his book and everything. And I called him up and I said, "Listen, I'm in Broward County." And I said, "This is what we're doing, and this is what I've done." He said, "Oh, that's terrific. This is a success story." He said, "Let me call Steve Bannon. I've been friendly with him for 14 years and we're doing this precinct strategy and we'll get you on." So I got on in about 2 or 3 weeks later, and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I said to myself, "Oh, what am I going to say?" Because, you get on the first time and, you're a little worried. You're in front of an audience. I didn't know how many people he had. Turns out he could get anywhere from 3 million people watching his show.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got on, and fortunately I had done a lot of speaking, so it wasn't that difficult. And, I learned what to say. The first time was a little difficult. We got through it. And, Bannon's sent a text to Schultz saying, "Hey, this guy is great. He really selling the program." So, because I started when I was 12 years old with the clothing business, I was able to, talk to people and understand how they work. So we started getting on, and then I would text Bannon back and forth, tell him what was happening. And then
Mhm.
about 3 months later, he texted me and he said, "You know what? Can you get me some success stories?" Well, I didn't have any success stories, so I started calling people around the country. Dan Schultz gave me his list, and we started calling people. And it took a long time to find a couple of success stories because there wasn't that many success stories at that time, and because you got to go through all the states and you got to get the people that really know what's going on. So it took a lot of time, a lot of phone calls. So we got 3 or 4 success stories. And it came on, and Bannon, the first one I got on was New Mexico. And Bannon said to me, "Wait a minute, why are you getting on New Mexico? Why don't you get on somebody like Arizona or something like that?" Well, the guy got on, he did a terrific job, and Bannon texted me and said, "Hey, that's great. I understand now." So I started calling around. I spent 8 hours a day for about 2 weeks calling all over the country. And we had a lot of success stories. We started getting them on. And I said to myself, "Wow, you know what? The left hand doesn't know what they're doing. The right hand, the states, no state was communicating with any state." So we decided to have a Zoom meeting. I did it with Michelle Swinick. And, the first meeting, we had about 50 people on. And we had a couple of success stories on telling everybody what was happening. So I started more phoning and more phoning. And we've gotten as many as 300-400 people on. And about right before 2 days before the election, I was up with President Trump because I wanted him to endorse, which he had done already, precinct strategy, but I wanted him to tell people at his rallies how important it was for them to get involved. So he said he would do that somewhere maybe in April or May when he starts to do his, rallies again, his big rallies. We'll see what happens. But he asked me what I thought about the election. And one of the nice things he did, he endorsed one of my candidates. 2 days before the election, he endorsed a candidate. And I said,
Wow.
"That's unbelievable." He actually endorsed Major Malloy, who was running in New England for Senate. And I thought that was sensational. So we were talking, and he gave me about 45 minutes, and he said, "What do you think about the election?" I said, "Well, look, I don't think anybody's going to be able to win because nothing has changed. The people still are cheating. They're still doing this, still doing that." He said, "Well, why don't you do something about it?" I said, "Well, let me see what I can do." About 2 weeks later, I had another Zoom. So now I'm running 2 Zooms in a day. And you know what it is to run a Zoom. You got to get all the people, you got to get the speakers. So we had our first Zoom meeting for election integrity, and we had 75 of the top people on it. I would kind of make a lot of calls again. And, everybody was discussing what the problems are. So about 3 or 4 down the road, we said, okay, we know what all the problems are. And about 3 weeks ago, we had 700 people on our Zoom meeting. We had Jovan Pulitzer. He did a half-an-hour training. We've had Cleta Mitchell. We've had Mike Lindell. We've had all the top people in the country on, and we're still getting people. So every 3 weeks, we have a Zoom meeting, and we expect to have over 1,000 people on our next meeting. And we're going to discuss how to get the voter rolls clean, how to get the machines done right, and go to hand, just the ballots without the machines and hand counting. Mike Lindell has worked on it, spent $30 million trying to do that. So now we need people. So let's go back to how you become a member of the executive committee. You can look up on Google and look up your county and look up your county Republican Party. So I'm in Broward. I would look up the Broward Republican County Executive Committee, and then I would find it. Then I would call up. There's usually a number on there, and we have a great chairman called Tom Powers, who is a MAGA guy and who has raised about $50,000 the last couple of weeks in donations. He goes out and gets donations. And there are people, what we do to become a committee man and committee woman. Once we become one, we attend meetings, we can vote, we get candidates elected. That's one of our prime things, is to get candidates elected. And you know how important that is, because we need to get all the school board people elected. And around the country, we've done a terrific job in getting Republicans elected in the school board members. And for the first time in Broward County since 2005, we have a Republican, because it's a Democratic area. And what else we do is we canvass neighborhoods. So why is it important canvassing neighborhoods? You go out, you try to get people signed in, and you go door to door talking to people. Now, not everybody likes to do that. So you can become a poll watcher, a poll worker. You can make phone calls, many, many things you can do. But also, when you get in, you make friends. You know what I mean? Many of the people that are in there that I know have made a lot of friends in there, and business associates, and you do business together. Let's face it. Who more important than you want to do than a conservative person to do business with? We know what's happening with our people.
Yes, we need to take a short break here. If that's all right with you.
100%.
Where can people go to get all the information about you, Steve?
So you want to go to Stern 1054 at AOL. That's Stern 1054 at AOL, or you can go to 954-318-6902. I'll repeat that, 954-318-6902. Or you can go to theflagshirt.com, www.theflagshirt.com. And when we come back from a break, we'll give you some more information.
All right, we'll be right back after these important messages from our sponsors. And don't forget to go to our website at KathrynRaakersWorld.com. And you can see the Let's Just Talk, you can see the Chef You and I, and Kathryn Raaker's World. We'll be right back. We're back on Kathryn Raaker's World, and Let's Just Talk with our honored guest, Steve Stern. And Steve is not only the CEO of Lord Daniel Sportswear, but he is a radio and TV personality and promotes precinctstrategy.com. And he has a Zoom show, Save My Freedom, a bi-weekly show about precinct strategy. Steve, a lot of things are happening today. I mean, you turn on the news and all of you see all this other stuff going on. And do you think, when are more people going to get involved? Is it going to take something like a tragedy, a major tragedy to our country? Or what? Are people waking up and smelling the coffee?
Well, here's the good news. Over the last 3 months, when I've done this for a long time, 4 years, the last 3 months, we could see people stepping up. So how do we know this? Well, one of my girls called me and said, hey, you got to call this guy, Robert West. I said, who's Robert West? He's in Texas. And what he did was, and I put this up, he wrote a book called The 5-Star Plan. And I want everybody to get that book and go to Amazon, The 5-Star Plan. It'll tell you, and what that does is it lets you know replacing politicians with patriots. So what he's done, he got 1,000 people involved in Texas. He has his own little podcast. He writes the book. But what got me the best, other than 1,000 people, he drove 8 hours to speak to 16 people. Now that's a commitment. When you're committed like that, that's super phenomenal. Now, around the states, I'll give you some of the information because this is very important. You want to know why and how people are getting involved. So a guy in Rhode Island, Alan Myers, he ran for office, lost in November. And he said to himself, hey, Did I lose because I really lost? Did I lose because the election was stolen? It was a close election. So he said, and Rhode Island is a blue state, as you know. He said, let me get some of my other compatriots together who ran for office. And in Rhode Island, I worked 3 years to try to get somebody to turn some of these county committees from Rhino to MAGA. So he did it. What he did, like I did, he got on the phone, started calling people, had meetings, got together. And I think there's 36 county committees in Rhode Island. He's already turned 18 of them into MAGA. He became the chair of chairs. What the chair of chairs is, there's a chairman in each of these counties. He's the head of that. He got a MAGA guy, Joe Powers, to be the chairman of the whole thing. So that's one way that is done. Now, South Dakota, you may have heard on Bannon and on some of the other programs that about 6 months ago, they were trying to take away the voting rights for the precinct committee men and committee women. So we got on TV, myself, Bannon, Lindell, many people, and told everybody about that. Well, made it look so bad that a girl named Jessica Polina got all the people up there and did all the press, and the South Dakota people backed down on this. And now she gave me 50 MAGA people, and we started South Dakota rolling. So we have a lot of people in South Dakota running. Now, South Carolina, we got a guy named Joe Citino and Jeff Davis. What they do is amazing. They send out a message on a nice email every day. You know what it is to send a big email out with pictures and all the information to people. So they had what they call reorg, where they reorganized and they get new people for committee men and committee women. So what they did was they sent this out all over the state, and they turned a lot of the rhinos into MAGA areas. And they're working on getting one of the guys who ran for vice chair of the Republican Party knocked out because he's a really bad guy. And, you know, I've been trying for 2 years to get a hold of Ronna McDaniels. Now, if, you know, Ronna McDaniels is the head of all the precinct committee men and committee women. Right. And I don't know that she's ever contacted any of us. She may talk to the, you know, the heads of the state, but the little people on the ground are the people that make the difference. So we're trying to get her to, you know, to really to take advantage of this. Now, a lot of good things have happened. You asked me why and how more people are getting involved. Well, about 4 months ago, General Flynn called me and he said, I got Clay Clark on the phone here with you. And he's having an event in Miami, which is very close to Fort Lauderdale, on May 12th and 13th. And he goes around the country, has events, and he's getting me involved in there. So we can talk to his 4,000 or 5,000 people that come in. We'll have a little booth set up there, how to get involved in the committees, and some of the important things that are happening in election integrity. So you know, on our Zooms, what have we done, you know, for election integrity? So we want to move the election integrity with the precinct strategy, because where does all this take place? It takes place in the precinct level. So we have to get all our precinct people to start to volunteer to work on the voter rolls and get the dead people off. And Joe Vaughn, when he was on his last thing, he said that 9 states have never removed one person off the voter roll. Well, what does that mean? That means every time they send out these ballots, they're sending to thousands and thousands of dead people. Well, who do you think's voting for those dead people? Well, a spouse, a child, a Democrat. Certainly the Republicans return them, but the Democrats, you know, are voting for those people. Now, even more important, I went out in December to Turning Point. That's the first time I went out to Turning Point. And why is that important? Well, I'm going to be 82 here next month. And, you know, you get limited time on this earth. So we got to have the young people get involved. And they guaranteed that they will have 5,000 new committee men and committee women this year. So that's the start. And we have a girl, Driana Sixtro, who's one of the field reps who I work with in Miami. She is fantastic. She's 27 years old. She goes to all the places, the schools, the colleges, the high schools, meetings for the Republican Party, and tells everybody how they're getting people involved. And not only are they getting people involved, but when somebody runs for office, she gets all the young people to come out and support the candidates. And then, as you know, Charlie Kirk and Tyler Boyd, they work very hard in getting kids in school, talking to them and trying to turn them, because we have a lot of schools, as you know, who are teaching the worst stuff that you ever want to hear, and especially in colleges. 99% of the people who are professors are left-leaning Democrats who want to take this country and put it into the toilet. Now, people are getting involved because, you know, when Giuliani ran for office and mayor in New York, first time crime was at 10%. He lost the race. Second time he ran, crime was at 45%. He lost the race. Third time, crime went up to 75%. He won the race. So is this going to happen in the United States? Is 2024 going to be the crushing blow to the Democrats? The border is open. We got 5 million people coming in. Somebody has to notice that. 100,000 people died from overdoses. Where are all the parents? We need them to step up. So it's my job to motivate the people to do all this stuff with our Zooms, with our discussions on different, areas. And, this is how we're going to do it. So we've got new people. Mel K is helping us now with our, podcast. Wayne Root, I was on there last week, and he's stepping up. And Pete Santilli stepping up. So as we get on more and more of these shows, more and more people are stepping up to help us spread the word. Because if we don't spread the word, it's not going to happen. Mike Lindell, every time he goes to an event, he talks about precinct strategy. And as you know, General Flynn is a committee man and in Sarasota, Florida. So here we have a general. He introduced me to a lot of generals. I'm talking to them about doing these events. And what we've done, Michelle and I have come up with something new. We do the Save My Freedom. Now we started this www.savemyfreedom.us. That is a website that is going to do a lot of things. We're going to mobilize, we're going to network, we're going to strategize, we're going to support, we're going to buy from each other. We're going to have live interviews on that with experts. We're going to have exclusive editorial stuff. We're going to have people stand up, speak up, stand up, save our country. So again, www.savemyfreedom.us. We have 10,000 people on there in 3 weeks. We expect to have 100,000 people on. And then one of the things that the flag shirt is going to do, and it's a funny thing, we talk about the flag shirt. I wear my flag shirt a lot. I went to lunch before our show, and I went to breakfast with my flag shirt. And buy and hold person comes up to me and says, "You must be Republican, because I don't see too many Democrats wearing this shirt." I said, "Yes, why?" He said, "Well, you know what? I'm sick and tired of what's happening. I'd like to get involved." So I flashed out my card for the Republican Party. I said, "Here's my card. Give me a call, and I'll let you know how to get involved." So if you go out and you see these rallies for Trump and for everybody else, everybody's wearing their patriotic shirt. And I tell you, when you go to a school board meeting, wear your patriotic shirt. So go to www.theflagshirt.com. You said I was in business 68 years, but it's 69 years. And next year will be 70. So then I can retire and devote 100% of my time to political stuff and getting people involved. So I think this is very important. And one of the things that happened also, which is very important, California. A lot of people say, well, Californians are just, let's write them off. They're way out west. They don't do anything. But I got a girl, Tina Saline, through being on one of the programs. She's already got me 4,000 new people to get involved. And what we're trying to do in California, they have a lot of organizations, but nobody knows what's going on. They're all doing different things. So we're going to try to get them all together through our www.savemyfreedom.us and through our Zoom meetings, and we're going to make it happen. So before we end this, if you have any questions I'd like to answer, because I always like the host, I take a lot of time, but I'd like the host to ask a couple of questions, maybe give a couple of good answers.
Well, I'm going to push my book. So there we go. And I am going to get involved in the precinct strategy with our Ohio group. How about that? So fantastic. I have a brand new book. It is written with my wonderful son, Robert Taggart. And this is a hardbound, Elizabeth Bromwell. Let me see if I do this right. Elizabeth Bromwell, The Case of the Chinese Leopard. And it's not only Elizabeth and her family are tangled in a deadly spy game between the U.S. and China. A stolen file has disappeared, and they're being hunted by the world's deadliest assassins to find the harbinger. Elizabeth will risk losing family and friends to protect the file from getting into enemy hands. The life of an expatriate can be lonely, especially without boundaries in a strange foreign land, full of adventure, longing for home. And guess what? It's a very patriotic book. And if you can see that, the leopard is on the wall of China, of all places. Couldn't come out at a better time, correct?
100%. And see, here's how important it is. You just said you're going to try to get involved in your local Republican Party. So there's the answer. Everybody got to get involved. Every show host, every TV host, they got to get involved. Now, a lot of people are busy all the time, so just go to a Republican club. We have 8 Republican clubs in Fort Lauderdale. You don't have to be a member of a county committee. There's
Right.
RLC, Republican Liberty Caucus. We have a lot of different areas where you can spend your time. And for election integrity, we need every person to step up now as a poll watcher, as a canvasser, to find out what's going on, to report. And we need to have some of these Democratic people arrested for voting twice, for voting illegally, for taking ballots when they have 6 ballots that come to our house rather than bringing 5 back and doing one, they vote on 6 ballots. So we need to do this and we need to make it happen. So I always end all my shows with action, action, action. I'd like to see action, action, action. Like to see you sign up 1 million new Republican voters, because, you know, a lot of people are afraid to vote because they say their vote won't count. Well, we're going to give them a lot of help in making it happen so your vote will count. My goal is to make sure that every American citizen registered properly, vote counts.
I want to thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure. I have to order my shirt and get one so that when I go to one of the meetings, I will have the flag shirt symbol and the flag on me. How about that?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. And thank you for everything that you do, Steve. It is such an honor to know you. And thanks.
My
We
pleasure.
really appreciate this so much. Don't forget to go to our website at KathrynRaakersWorld.com and letsjusttalk.com. And we'll see you soon.